Sometimes it's good to just dance.
Welcome to the Good Stuff Family Podcast. I'm Dawn Kendrick, and I am so glad you're here. These are stories from the perspective of a news reporter on a next-level assignment. Everyone has a story. Stories of hope, resilience, and how we believe God weaves people, relationships, opportunities, all of it for good. For many of us, faith leads our steps, others not so much. But that is what makes this growing Good Stuff family great. We know the journey is better together. Welcome to the family.
Well, I got a suggestion. Sometimes it's good to just dance. Come along.
Without any symptoms or warning, 18-year-old Patrick Peanut Joyce, a freshman at University of Kentucky, passed away in his sleep from long QT syndrome. It is a story that started in unthinkable tragedy and loss and has led now to other lives being saved. Prevention is power, and Peanut's legacy is hope. The 14th annual Patrick Joyce Scholarship Fund 5K will be at 8 a.m. Saturday, July 26th at West Park Station in Cleveland, Ohio. And since its inception, the race has raised more than $400,000 to support long QT syndrome research and the Patrick Joyce Scholarship Fund at St. Edward High School. The whole movement is bigger than the Joyce family. It is family by blood and beyond. A huge network now of friends growing in a common shared hope to prevent other families from having to walk through this grief. On this podcast, Patrick Peanut Joyce's family joins me, as well as the Cleveland Clinic's Dr. Peter Aziz, who has become a family friend for them, to explain more about what exactly long QT syndrome is and how lives are being saved now since Peanut's death, as we keep learning more and more about this condition. The good stuff out of the grief, its legacy that lives on beyond Pat's last breath. The last breath that Pat Joyce took was November 7th, 1991. It was his college roommate, Corey Best, who found him.
Got up, started getting ready, and I heard Pat breathing in a strange way, and I actually kind of shook the bed and told him to get up, and he didn't respond.
Again, 18 years old, no signs, zero signs, zero symptoms, correct?
Correct.
So the reality is that there's you can survive at early detection, and this is where this guy right here, Dr. Peter Aziz from the Cleveland Clinic, doctor, you have been, he's family, isn't he, guys?
Sure is.
For sure.
That's the best good stuff, and arguably no one cares more about preventing long QT than you, doctor. So thank you so much, as busy as you are, for joining us. Can you give us kind of a window into what is long QT?
Sure. First, I have to say thank you for all of you having me here. I think it's important to be part of this conversation. As Dawn mentioned, this is something that I'm feverishly passionate about, and I've been so since hearing about what long QT syndrome is. I've dedicated my academic and clinical practice to this very disease and diseases like it, and I think the Joyce family is a tragic story, but also one of hope, and we'll discover why in a second. But first, sort of peeling the onion that is long QT syndrome. I think, for one, we've learned a lot about it since Peanut's death, and that's the fortunate part, is part of the struggle that we had before, which is not knowing how to diagnose this and not knowing how it manifests. I think we've solved a lot of that now, and that's incredibly helpful, obviously, for us as clinicians. But what it is it's really a microscopic problem that happens on the cellular level, and it mostly relates to how heart muscle cells deal with pumping ions and how ion channels work. And not to belabor the science here, but ultimately, patients with long QT syndrome have an impaired ability of these ion channels to perform at their best, and that impaired ability can lead to life-threatening arrhythmias. And in the case of the Joyce family, the story of Peanut is actually, unfortunately, classic in the sense that from what his roommate, as we heard just described, patients get up early in the morning and the alarm clock, the sound of an alarm clock can be a trigger for a particular type of long QT syndrome, which the Joyce family has. And that led to presumably the life-threatening arrhythmia that afflicted Peanut and led to his death. Again, that's the unfortunate part, is no one knew at the time. And certainly, when this all happened, I don't think this was something that was in the forefront of clinicians' brains, and connecting those dots then was a monumental challenge. And I think it's a good segue into how I met Meredith and how that whole story really provided all of us with some clarity.
Because it was really 20 years after that date where we started to connect these dots, and we never knew, going back to Patrick's passing, what the cause of his death was. We knew it was natural causes, but a college kid, you really don't think it's natural causes at the age of 18. You think it's something more than that. And it was 20 plus years later. Nothing really came of it, other than the fact that we were dealing with the loss. And my wife had some concerns about some sports-induced asthma, as we'll call it, for my daughter going through grade school and high school. And that led my wife to sort of challenge the situation of what she was experiencing and get more studies done. And it led us to Dr. Z's, where I still remember to this day, we didn't know what Patrick's passing, what caused it, but I remember the day that we were sitting with Dr. Aziz and he was explaining the situation, and it was full circle 20 plus years earlier, which made me realize, that was the first time I think that we were able to put a finger on what probably caused Patrick's death. And from Meredith's testing and then my testing, all my siblings got tested, my cousins got tested. It is a genetic thing. And at this point, it's Meredith and I sort of in this boat together. Nobody else has this genetic issue, but I have 2 other kids. They're fine, but it's because learning of this and learning of Patrick and everything else that's led us through all this testing and all this, education that Dr. Aziz has been able to provide.
And so, Meredith, what does that mean for you? How is your life different? Is it at all? Or what does it mean in the prevention?
So when I was first diagnosed, it was, I would say, like, my mom was more worried about me playing sports and exercising, because Dr. Aziz always told me I could do it, but I'd be at risk. So I think over the years, I've learned how to monitor my heart rate, and I take the beta blocker every night. So at this point, my life feels like normal. But I think, even though I never got to meet my Uncle Patrick, I truly think that he did save my life, like my Aunt Katie said. And he lives through me and my dad every day through this.
He does. And in fact, he went to, as we said, to the University of Kentucky. And I'm going to bring Katie back in here, because when we talk about legacy, now, Katie, your 2 twins, Gracie and Olivia, actually go to the University of Kentucky. Like, this is legacy. Yeah. I want to show, let's show really quick when we were talking last night with Corey. Let's just show this quickly. Mama, I know it's so bittersweet for you, but let's just listen to what Corey said, because he really is, he's family. Corey's family now too. And it was, I think, by divine design.
So random, because there was no choosing of roommates. It was just, we were put together by chance, purely by chance.
And I'm happy that my daughters, living in the dorm their freshman year, didn't experience what you did, had a fantastic freshman year. And I think, Patrick was looking down and keeping them safe.
It's like legacy, isn't it, Katie?
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
One of the things that came from it is the University of Kentucky changed policy because, like Corey said, nobody knew CPR on the floor. None of his friends, Corey didn't know what to do. So Kentucky changed policy that, a student on every floor of the dorm has to know CPR.
There you go. So again, change I see it all the time, even from my reporter days, where parents take the grief and turn it into hope and optimism and change to save other families from knowing that grief. That's really what it's all about for you, isn't it, Katie, Jerry, Meredith, all of you, right?
Yes.
It is. And Patrick's friends started this race, and you just see the effect that Patrick had on everybody that surrounded him. And Patrick's friends gave us a gift. Not only, did his friends start this race and we do it every year, they gave us a gift that we get to share with our nieces and nephews every year who Patrick was. And, it's just, I couldn't be more excited because they know their Uncle Patrick. Every year they hear a different story, and I thank Patrick's friends every day.
Yeah. And again, I think it's just, it comes down to legacy and what we're going to do. So whoever's listening to this, okay, maybe you'll never be diagnosed with long QT syndrome, but how can you see the good in others and be the good for them? It's about a purpose-driven life, isn't it? In 18 years, Pat Peanut Joyce showed us that he was really beloved. I never knew him, but I can tell by the things that I've been hearing from people. And when Corey said, let's show this, that he, all these years later, it'll be 34 years this November, correct, Katie?
Yes.
All these years later, Corey, again, nobody's getting any younger, but what does he carry in his wallet still? This picture of his friend, his roommate he only knew for a couple months before he found him dead. But he carries it because of the connection that he had with him. And it reminds him, and now all of us, that today is a gift. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Let's listen to what Corey said last night.
I am just so touched that you still carry a picture of him. That just is just, so he did have an impact on your life. And it's just, thank you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's it's nice. It's nice. I mean, in the end, it's a nice memory. He was a good friend for sure.
He was a good friend. I mean, really, is there any other greater compliment? He was a friend to many. So Katie, you want to tell us more about this race as I keep an eye on the time? It's a fundraiser for research, correct, but also for scholarships.
My family attend Our Lady of Angels in West Park, and Patrick's friends from Our Lady of Angels, started this race. He
was probably Our Lady OLA, Our Lady of Angels student here in this cute picture, wasn't he?
He was. And one of the fundraising, that comes out of this is a student from OLA gets a scholarship on behalf of Patrick to go to St. Ed's.
That's so fantastic. It's fantastic. And I bet you that these kids feel that honor of making the world a happier, kinder place, like Pat Peanut Joyce did in just 18 years, right? That's what comes with it. Mm-hmm.
We get a letter from a student that gets these scholarships, and it's just, I'm speechless. I mean, from a tragedy, many things, that are very good in the, came from his path.
It's still hard to say though, isn't it? It's still hard to say. I hear it in your voice.
It is. When I visited Kentucky, I felt him. My one daughter, didn't want to even go on the visit. And I think it was hard for her on the way home to admit, it was their first decision. They chose it right after their first visit to a college that they wanted to go to Kentucky. And I truly, as I talk to you, Dawn, my family, kind of makes fun of me, but I truly believe in signs. And I feel that, Patrick, I'm just I'm overwhelmed that the both of them chose Kentucky. I didn't even think that was an option. And when we visited, it was the first time I ever stepped foot on that campus. It was hard for our entire family. I mean, it changed all of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, this race, we get the opportunity, because I don't know if his friends didn't start this race, if anything would have happened, like if we would have, you know, started a fundraiser. So it's just, it brings community together. It brings friends together. We get to go back to, you know, where we grew up. You know, one of the people, Kathy Gallagher, who is one of the founders of the race, she wrote the most beautiful letter to the University of Kentucky on behalf of my daughters. So it just shows you, we, you know, it's special, the relationship that we continue every year with Patrick's friends, the community. And, you know, I truly believe that my brother saved my older brother and my niece's life. And it just, it's overwhelming. That's why this year, you know, I am really putting my all into this race to gain, you know, people to sign up, people to sponsor, because it's for such a good cause. It's, you know, for the research that, you know, this race and the money provide, and for the student from OLA to go there.
Yeah.
Our family's honored.
And this is a perfect time to bring in Jason Salupo. Speaking of friends who know and honor and still love Pat Peanut Joyce. Jason, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be able to speak.
The owner of West Park Station, where the race will start at 8 a.m. June 26th. Again, there's the email, or I'll crawl it at the bottom for Katie if you need information on sponsorship. But would you, Jason, give me a window into your soul? Why this is the 14th annual? Why is it so important for you to be such an important part of this?
Well, there were, like Katie had mentioned, I mean, one of our friends, it would be remiss if we didn't mention Kathy Gallagher Higbee. She's kind of, I mean, this doesn't happen with a whole host of people, but it's not sustained without her. She is, we were talking one time about, you know, there were several iterations of the race, or of this get together. Really, there was reverse raffle at OLA, the Joyce Elementary School. There was a run along the lake in Lakewood Park. And then we were talking one time at Lakewood Park. You wouldn't get 10 feet without seeing somebody that you hadn't seen since the year prior. And it was almost like a little bit of a reunion. So just to try to make it a little bit more meaningful, as I was talking to her, we ended up discussing how we can bring it up to West Park, and not as a personal game, but to make it where we are running past the Joyce family home, where they grew up, running past OLA, Our Lady of Angels, where we went to school, and then coming back and having a get together where we can actually sit down and talk and have some meaningful conversations, rather than just having sweat after running or walking or whatever we had done at that point. But you know, we have a whole host of events every year up here, but this one really hits home. You know, you have, and I try to impart to my staff all the time that, you know, there's the obvious people that are doing good all the time. When they suit up for work, the cops, the journalists, the doctors. But you know, it's hard to get that meaning out of, you know, serving food and drinks to people. But if you look deeper than that, to be part of like creating this memory and creating this thing that again sustains us, and Corey, the fact that he keeps that picture in his wallet after 34 years, it's not really surprising. It's pretty amazing that iconic picture lasts with him too. But Pat's that kid that if you didn't like him, you're the problem. There's not too many of those.
What a compliment that is. That's a huge compliment, Jason. Yes.
We all know people like that. Pat was one of them. Hard to see that picture. But but I mean, that's who Pat was. And not only just medically and for the family and getting answers, but I mean, he's this legacy of getting all his friends and family together is just immeasurable. So it's an honor to actually be part of that on a bigger level.
And as we begin to wrap this up, I'm bringing all y'all are family. I can feel it. Your family. Y'all are bought into this fantastic Olin Mills. Look, you guys go way back. This family that now is growing by leaps and bounds because of what's happening in this race. Again, the 14-year anniversary for that now coming up. So is there anything else you guys want to add? I want to make sure Dr. Aziz, people who are listening who might be like, Lord, what do I do? What do you want to say to people as we begin to wrap this up when it comes to long QT syndrome?
Could talk for 45 minutes about this, but I won't. At first, I have to say that I feel as much of the family and being part of it as you all had mentioned today. Butch, you mentioned the day that we met in 2013, and I remember that like it was yesterday. I have very vivid memories, Meredith, of meeting you as a little girl, and I have very vivid memories of the conversations we had with your parents about what this all means, and to see how you've developed into an adult and what you do for your profession just makes me so proud, and I can't imagine how your parents feel about this, you'll know me. But I think there's an important handful of things to discuss about this that are really guiding principles. I think the first is when something like this happens, when you have a tragic event like this in a family member, of course, connecting those dots 34 years ago was not possible. We just didn't have that information. But we do now. So if there's a family member of yours that's been afflicted by something like this, and it's still unclear why that happened, it's important that that family gets evaluated, because there's a chance, like there was in the Joyce family, that somebody else also carries this diagnosis. And fortunately, in the world of long QT syndrome, as Meredith and Butch know, there's treatment, and that treatment is very effective. And that's certainly what we've implemented in this case. And it's a very different story now, I think, for the family. Now that we know what happened, we can write different chapters now, not of tragedy, but of really new beginnings, while always remembering, what Peanut was and what he meant to everybody. And I hear that all the time. And certainly every year when we do the run, there's a lot of hope to be had. I think the other things that we should be very mindful of is if somebody has a passing out spell, particularly if that passing out spell is related to exertion, that is definitely a call to have that person evaluated and to make sure that there's nothing from a heart standpoint that's going on. And I think many are aware of that, but not everybody. And I think the last thing that's worth mentioning, and this was touched upon, but it can't be emphasized enough, is the role of CPR and the role of AEDs out in the community. I think the best thing that we can all do as citizens is get trained in CPR, know how to do it. There are studies that show that 6th graders can do CPR effectively. So obviously if 6th graders can do it, we all can. And I think it's a really important piece of what to do if we can't identify somebody before an event were to happen, like we could. Unfortunately, in Peanut's story, what can we do after to help them? Someone had mentioned that in his dorm room floor, no one knew CPR, and that's not an indictment, obviously, on those kids then. It was a long time ago, but we know the power of that now. And I think one very powerful thing that we could all do is again get trained and know what to do if something tragic like that were to happen.
Dr. Peter Aziz, I feel like the Cleveland Clinic is so blessed to have you in the calling that you have, not just, this genius who studies and researches, but the heart, ironically, the heart that you lead with. It's so obvious. I've known you for half an hour now. So, and I know, Jerry, they kept saying that we love Dr. Aziz, and I see why. why.
Don, I'd be remiss if my sister talked a lot about the scholarship, and that was the whole purpose of this race in the beginning. But ever since my daughter's diagnosis and over the last 10 plus years, we've actually been using half the proceeds to go to an organization that Dr. Aziz is part of, which is called PACES. And it's for pediatric heart issues for children, where doctors do studies. And we've even been participant in some conversations where they brought Meredith and our family into it. And it's great to be able to donate not just to the scholarship, but also to the research that Dr. Aziz and his fellow doctors do. So we'd be remiss if we didn't say that a lot of the proceeds benefit that organization also.
I want to mention last weekend, one of our sponsors, and, Jason, we keep talking about family, and it's important for you to know this. The first race at Lakewood Park, one of our sponsors' wife recognized the peanut symbol, and they moved from Michigan to Cleveland. And of course, the wife was like, we're going to do something as a family. So they signed up for this race, and I didn't even know them. So Jason, you bring family to this race, you bring fun to this race. And, our family thanks you for, giving us your restaurant to, hold this race and the party after the race. So I just want you to know that.
It's an absolute, I really is. I can't say that enough. It's an absolute honor to be part of that. So and certainly in that capacity. And every time it's one of the more fun events that we do. I hate, just to bring a little bit of light to it. I mean, we have, like I said, several events, but this one, it's a race, but now we're gathering after. There's a band. It's always a good time. It's generally been great weather. It just somehow the sun's always shining upon us when we do this one.
Dr. Aziz comes every year.
I think I met you there years ago. Now that I think about it, I remember now. All right, Katie. So as we wrap this up, you want to remind people again, sponsorship still open. There's your email at the bottom. If you want to be part of this growing family, there's so much privilege in that. You want to go ahead and tell us quickly for sponsorship and for registration for the race?
Patrick's nieces and nephews are, kind of taking over this race. So there is a form that you can fill out, and I believe there's 3 different levels of sponsorships. So, like I said, this year I really am giving it all because, I think I owe it to my brother this year. He kept my girls safe.
Katie, thanks for reaching out in the first place. We say together we can, together we will for the Good Stuff family. And we say, God, weaves. Now watch him work. I see it happening in all of you. So God bless you. And thank you. Just thank you so much for the legacy that lives on.
Sometimes it's good to just dance.
You've been listening to Dawn Kendrick's The Good Stuff Family Podcast. If you found inspiration here, would you click subscribe, follow, share as we grow our Good Stuff family tree? Check out thegoodstufffamily.com for links to all our social media platforms and for how you or your business could sponsor a story. The Good Stuff Family, reaching and touching hearts around the world by weaving families together one story at a time. On your mark, get set, let's go.
Well, I got a suggestion. Sometimes it's good, so just come along